Hello, welcome, product community, and a very good day to all of you. So, welcome back to another live stream by Product People. So, to ask questions, and also we have an icebreaker poll that we have. Please make sure that you come on Slido and meet us halfway to make sure that this becomes a very interactive session for both of us. So, there are two ways that you can actually do that. So, one thing is you can either scan the QR that you have here and get on Slido directly. So you can definitely use your mobile phones, applications to scan the QR. Or if you want to be a bit more adventurous than that, go to slido.com and then type in the code 1678890. So again, Slido will be basically used for the icebreaker poll that we have coming in a few, and also for any questions that you would like to post to our presenter. So that being said, the topic that we will be discussing today is super interesting, something that I would really love to get to know more about, and that is strategic procrastination when doing nothing is the best product decision. And that will be done, and our speaker is Aastha, who is the global head of product strategy at Bolt. Super interesting and super exciting to know more about this topic, Aastha, with you and kind of dwell deeper into this. So a little bit about myself. My name is Angelina Costa, your host for the day, but people call me Angie for short. And I've been in the product management and business analysis space for about 5 years, naturally transitioning from the business information systems degree that I did. So that being said, what and who exactly is Product People? So the way that we do what we do is we provide interim product management services, product ops, and transformation acceleration services through our in-house staff. We are also really hot on sharing knowledge, where we basically host live events, like especially like this one, and talks for the largest product management communities. And that is exactly how we give back to our community. And this is the icebreaker poll that I've been telling you about. So we really want to get to know you. And we want Aastha to know who exactly is here with us today. So the question for you is, how many times have you consciously decided to procrastinate your product or business decisions? First option, never. I do things right away. Second, once or twice a year. Third, every other month. Fourth, often. I'm a serial procrastinator. So again, the way that you can post your answers are on slido.com, or you could also use the comment section on the channel that you are using to interact with us. So you can use the QR here that you see on the right, or go on to slido.com, enter the code, and answer the question. I can already see a couple of responses coming in. It's super interesting to know what exactly our audience thinks about these icebreaker polls that we have on here. So like the way that I would answer this is possibly like, I'm somebody who really wants to get things done and hate to have like a backlog of decisions. So for me, it's like 1. But my gut feel is that Aastha here is not going to be talking about 1 a lot. So, okay, we have gotten our results in. So 55% of the audience is saying it's the 4th option. Often I'm a serial procrastinator. Fall closely by once or twice a year, with 27% of the audience saying that, every other month of 18%, and 0% whenever I do things right away. So as it turns out that I'm the one person who does that then and there. So that being said, without further ado, over to you, Aastha, to discuss on this topic, strategic procrastination when doing nothing is the best.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Angelina, for giving me this segue and very interesting. I think, yes, you're probably one of the very few who do things right away. And I'm glad to meet like the rest of the serial procrastinators here with us. So thank you everyone today for joining this call. The funny thing is, it's an extremely one-sided meeting. I have no idea who's on the other side. So I'm basically just talking to a screen. So let me start and share my presentation. Please let me know if it's like everybody can see it. All right.
Yeah, we can see.
You can see the presentation. Great.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody who is here, especially the people who are serial procrastinators, welcome. I think you will find, or maybe you're here to find a lot of confirmation bias about the things that you're doing and how you're doing them right. So let's hope that it's all great and you get a lot of confirmation bias, or you learn a few other things to procrastinate even better. Now, the whole idea of this presentation is that even though we all procrastinate, a lot of us do it with a lot of anxiety. Like we are quite stressed out about, damn, what I'm doing, should I do it right away? Is it okay to procrastinate? And we have some internal maybe fears or imposter syndrome, which definitely not lets us rest in peace when we're procrastinating, at least for myself. So something like what Angelina said, I want to do things right away. I just end up sometimes maybe procrastinating them. And what we will discuss today is maybe how to bring maybe a bit more peace to the idea of procrastination. Like it's not the end of the world. And maybe what you're doing with procrastination is going to help you achieve way better results, not just for your business, but also like your own personal and professional development. So let's begin. And as Angelina said, my name is Aastha, and I have been doing product strategy and planning at Bold for close to about 5 years now. Actually, it's going to be very soon, 5 years. Time flies. Cool. I have a quick prompt. A lot of you mentioned that you do procrastination quite often. So can you tell me what was the time you can think of where the procrastination actually led to a better result for your product or your business? And as Angelina shared before, you have the QR code for the Slido on this slide as well. So I might pause here for like 5 seconds, and then I'm going to move to the next slide. And then I think maybe Angelina can read us a couple of answers.
Yes.
Hi. Cool. So as a bunch of people may be typing their answers or ignoring the question altogether, and the part of strategic procrastination, let's address the anxiety parts, right? Or the imposter syndrome. Because a lot of people might think that if I'm not doing something, I am being lazy or I am not shipping enough. But I want to re-emphasize on the point here that not doing something is not equal to doing nothing. And that's what we'll talk about in the rest of this presentation. So on an everyday basis, a lot of us are making decisions. Let's talk about the two subgroups here, which I was told is going to be the majority of the audience here. So for the product managers, the day-to-day common decisions are like feature prioritization. Should I implement this user feedback? Do I have a bunch of tech debt left? And overall, how do I exactly build my roadmap, right? On the other hand, for product leaders, it could be more about like overall strategic alignment with the organization's goals. Am I doing resource allocation properly, as well as how is the overall dependency resolution, as well as cross-functional collaboration is happening? You have to understand time is a zero-sum game, right? Unlike maybe other things which can multiply and grow altogether. If you do or spend time doing one thing, you're not doing something else. And some of the like basic benefits that procrastination can help is product managers can actually spend time doing like prioritizing high impact tasks. They can use a lot of downtime for reflection. So instead of just being chop, 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 how about we stop, we take a pause, we reflect on the things we already shipped, think about maybe what worked, what didn't, and maybe have a bit more strategic and higher confidence things that you're doing in the future. So it will not just help you do your work better, but I think it will also help your manager and your leaders gain more confidence and credibility in yourself. So the next time I'm actually thinking of delegating, let's say, a list of tasks or open-ended problem sets to a product manager or a product leader, if they can strategically actually choose what to do and what not to do, takes up a lot of, let's say, decision making from the rest of the teams, and it can actually help move things faster. On the product leader side, similar, you want to make sure that you're allocating time proactively. You want to make sure that you're mapping the right talent with the right problems, because not everybody is built for solving every challenge, right? Making sure that you're clearing all the roadblocks that are there for your team and taking out a lot of time for frequently coaching and mentoring your team. So looking at the product making decision matrix, and basically, how do we decide what to do and what not to do, right? And I'm guessing a lot of you might have seen this 2x2 in some or the other way, because product prioritization, of course, everybody has been doing. So when you think of like expected impact on the y-axis, high being on top, low being on the bottom, and the time frame of impact. So are you going to have short-term gains, or are you going to have like long-term gains from that project? For something which is immediate short-term impact and has like high impact, you want to do the action immediately. If it's low impact and short-term, like if it's low and short-term, maybe no action, because then you're deviating and distracting your resources from doing something which is more important, like maybe high impact or high impact long-term tasks, right? And then for the right side, what you see is long-term gains and low impact. So the why, if you might notice a question mark here, it's not a typo. It's more of a confidence challenge, as in, are you sure it has low impact? Because what you can actually do is spend time figuring out and validating your impact even more. So basically, you might have guessed already, the strategic procrastination comes towards the long-term gains. And another way of looking the same matrix is actually the time frame of action. So let's say immediate action and delayed action, the things which have high impact and need immediate action are your priority, zero, no-brainers. Immediate action, but low impact could be quick wins. On the right top side is where all of the strategic procrastination lies, like high impact, long-term gain. And again, on the right bottom side, what you see is delayed action with low impact could go into your backlogs and you revisit them again. I actually had another question, but as I realized, it's not two-way, so I can't get instant response from people. But I just wanted to understand, how often do you guys actually use decision trees in your day-to-day life? How often do you think, if I do this, the outcome will be this. If I do this, the outcome will be this. And that's how I'm going to prepare or compare different outcomes. A simple question, let's say you have an opportunity at your hand. You might ask, or your leader might ask, do we have enough domain expertise? And do we have the capabilities to actually execute on this opportunity? Now, two possible answers, yes and no. For both of the possible answers, you can choose to act now, which is, we have enough domain expertise, let's act now. And then you define what is the outcome that you're actually looking for, right? You could look for the success rate. What do you define as success? What is your so it's getting a bit financial. Apologies if you're not familiar with it, but net present value of the investments that you need to put in now if you're acting, right? And what is going to be, let's say, the competition response if you do that now. If it's a no, sorry, I put success rate as 0 at the bottom, you could see, because probably it's going to be very hard if you don't have any expertise and any capabilities and have achieved great success. Probably a miracle, but most likely success rate close to 0. Let's say you choose to delay the action. And what do you do when you delay the action? You maybe meanwhile gain expertise, you build some capabilities, you maybe find some partners, or acquire something in terms of team or talent to actually gain that domain expertise. And then you can again evaluate what could be the outcome, your success rate, how much investment you would need now, and what could be the competition's response according to your action. A similar set, by the way, is also something like this, which is not about your own capabilities and like, do we have the execution capabilities or the knowledge? But it's a bit more about the market and the product itself and the users itself. So on the left side of the things that you can control, on the right side of the things are that you cannot actually directly control. So is the market ready for the product? And are the users familiar with the product? Or are you going to spend a lot of time educating the users about the service, the segment, or the market is still not ready because let's say there is not enough infrastructure or the devices that you need to actually deploy your product. We'll get into some of the case examples and studies as well later to see what different players have done with strategic procrastination. And I'm sure you'll also kind of relate to some of those strategies. On the right side, I know one of the things that I have mentioned is second mover advantage. So at least a lot of people believe that there is a huge first mover advantage. But then many of you might have read a bunch of startup books, which also try and tell you that actually there could be a second mover advantage in the market because just the uplift that you get from launching the product is a lot faster because your first player has done the job of educating the market, creating the user base, even getting the suppliers and giving you some sort of like proof of concept. These questions kind of also depend on your organization's objective in a current state of time. So for example, are you looking for a product market fit? Because that would have different questions versus if you're looking for growth or market share or profitability, all of those objectives will define different questions for your decision tree. So as mentioned, it's kind of like a cost benefit analysis for procrastination. So how do you compare the outcomes if you act now versus if you act later? Again, like I said, the idea of doing these things is to actually reduce that anxiety that you get when you're procrastinating. So you know that what you're doing is actually strategic and you have the confidence and back up your decision when needed. Let's say your head of product or your VP or CEO comes in and starts asking you, why haven't you done this yet? This seems like a very exciting opportunity. The investors are asking for it. And you have a huge data backed up decision, which is I'm choosing to not do now, right? And in general, I think that actually creates a lot more leverage, not just for you, but also for your CEO in front of your board members and investors, if you're a founder. How can we actually, so moving forward from that, I'm going to mention some of the basic elements that help us understand the fundamentals of a market. And this is what we can quickly look at to kind of have some napkin calculation on, am I doing it now or am I putting it like off for later, right? Make sure you have a very attractive market size. So like in case something has very small impact and just incrementality, then maybe something for later. Make sure you want to have enough profitability in the long run because you can do as much discounting and promotions in the beginning to get enough user. But at some point, you would have to create a sustainable like growth model. So can that business actually generate some money? If it's your second product or features, make sure you have synergy in terms of your operations or the customer base. If you're launching completely different sets of products, know that it's going to be a lot more inertia for you to acknowledge or see the growth that you want to. Make sure you have good amount of user insights and that you're actually offering the value proposition. You don't want to pre-converge on a product by not offering actually real value and then actually spending a lot of money on acquiring customers who experience a bad product and don't want to come back, eventually increasing your like overall cost of customer acquisition and maybe even having, let's say, a bad brand image initially. Competition and market intelligence, making sure you understand like the basics of what the other competitors are doing. What do you do that actually can differentiate you? Or is there a market that fits your product, your offering, your values as a company as well. And last, but the biggest, most thing, which is a pragmatic confidence, because a lot of these strategies haven't been executed before. And there's never the same ideal state. Like the market conditions are never the same. There could be a pandemic, there could be a war, there could be an alien attack, like all those other things that you cannot control are also happening. So you need to make sure that there's a little bit of those, just grow a pair, I'm making this decision, this is what I'm saying, and that's the kind of pragmatic confidence you gain based on the data points you know. Let's talk about some of the players who've actually done it pretty well. And I have a very simple example. Everybody knows Facebook and Instagram, so I start with this example. Instagram was a separate app, was not part of the Meta ecosystem. Back in 2016, when they actually wanted to acquire a photo sharing app, they were looking both at Snapchat and Instagram. Very few people use Snapchat these days, teenagers and people with different use cases, but like Instagram has gained its popularity. Most of us have it. And I think what Facebook did really well was instead of building it from scratch, they actually just went ahead and acquired and didn't like rush into development and distract their resources. This next slide actually is very interesting. I found this article which was measuring when does a product go live, as you see on the right side of the screen, when does it sign up a first customer, and when does it feel its first product market fit. And as you see, a lot of these players we might be familiar with have a lot of gap between the first live product and actual first product market fit. But if you actually see some of the good ones is Slack, right? Others have also done it really well, but if I could also add their valuations, Slack definitely shines on top. It has 25 billion of market cap right now. They waited almost like 4 years before they had first live product. And they perfected it and made sure that users who are actually using it have a perfect experience and actually add more people. So it gave them a great, let's say, user shared growth loop, overall leading to their like product market fit really fast as well from the live product. And cool. I will also share my personal experience and maybe think that place where I am procrastinating, right? And I can take you a little step by step from the with my thought process. So I work at both, and we have a lot of major competitors globally. Everybody knows Uber. Some of you might know Glovo. Other mobility platforms, local, maybe in Asia as well, and other parts of the world, right? And all of them offer a customer subscription program. It starts from something as cheap as €3 to €30 per month, and they have a bunch of offerings from free deliveries to cashbacks to exclusive promos and whatnot. Unless you are in Estonia or Baltics, I think you haven't seen a Bold Plus. And the reason is like, I think, is it a real value proposition to the customers and suppliers? Because I don't know how many of you have actually experienced those subscription products. If you actually measure your invoice before subscribing and after subscribing, it doesn't change as much because a lot of those benefits are just baked into service fee, or they just get offloaded to the other part of the marketplace. Another thing is we don't know what is actually the uplift of user engagement or orders from compared to the other promotional campaigns we already do based on user lifecycle and let's say their usage patterns, right? And is it actually is it actually better than just lowering prices? Because if you are a customer first company, why do I have to find, like, going from point A to B can be going from point A to B or going from point A to D to B, which is, hey, I'm going to offer you subscription so you can have cheaper rides, or I just directly offer you cheaper rides because you then don't have to have a subscription. So overall, a lot of these players at a market level report they have great, let's say, usage metrics from the subscribers versus the non-subscribers. But my question is, how is this not a selection bias? Because the most active, highly valuable customers, of course, are going to be the ones who are subscribing. And if there is any rationality, of course, they might increase their usage. But what about all those medium and low activity users? For me, suddenly the marketplace has become less attractive and I don't get any of the promotions I used to anymore. And for me, I get the same thing on another app. So why do I subscribe actually if I am being a diligent customer? So actually looking, what would have been better would be like actually looking at the usage patterns of the users of the same cohort of users who were before the subscription and after the subscription, instead of comparing like completely different sets of customers, which shows like bias. Right. Another thing I looked at was just like macros. So this is the offerings and the product features, let's say, that the players are offering. But does it actually move the needle in the market share? So what I noticed was Uber One was launched, let's say, in November. This was Spain. And more or less the market share, in fact, after, I don't know if you can see the highlights that I'm doing on the screen. But if you see the first half of the graph, Uber had the same market share as it has on the second half of the graph. So it doesn't really actually affect the macros as much. I have something similar for US as well. So US has in fact two big players. One is DoorDash, which actually is a market leader, and Uber is the second. And if you actually see when they launched this subscription program, overall, still there's not as much improvement in their overall sales. And in fact, I think the more important thing is the ongoing value proposition that they keep offering their providers rather than packaging it maybe some another way. So why is it a positive thing, or why maybe I want to do it or go forward with it? Like, it's great to get a recurring revenue from the customers. They will be locked in and they might have increased spending per user. But at the same time, it might have reduced user profitability, because if you think about a marketplace, you charge a commission on something. If your $100 basket becomes $80 after discount, your commission also reduces by 20%, because you're not charging it on a $100 basket anymore, you're charging it on an $80 basket now. So is it actually like really profitable for the restaurant as well as us? And actually, is it even like a real value proposition for the customer, which you can give them by direct like campaigns or promotions? So verdict, maybe strategically delay, try to observe and iterate more. There could be a more better defined time frame for it and how often we revisit it, and that's what we're doing internally. It's like kind of like a personal example of a strategic delay for a big product decision, right? And then many others are strategically dealing as well. If you could think of like all the big companies, like, sorry, Gold is mentioned there, it's not that big, but I just wanted to add like a last example. But Google and Microsoft procrastinated getting into the hardware space. Meta actually didn't do AI didn't get into AI the first, even though they probably definitely had all the capabilities and the engineering arm and funding. But they waited, they wanted the market to get more mature, the regulations to mature, because that's a big aspect of AI in general. And then they wanted to be playing a bit safer, because I think they realize rushing into AI is not something that works or is necessary for their products. Same thing for AWS, actually. Amazon internalized their product. It was their engineers' product that they used to use before they actually externalized and monetized it. And so Bolt as well. I think instead of getting into a lot of verticals altogether, Bolt operated ride hailing only for the initial 6 years, got a pretty good operation excellence learning curve, and then kind of got into different segments and markets as well. So a lot of these things that we discussed today kind of put strategic procrastination as a tool for three main things. One, deliberate decision-making tool. So you're not just delaying because you feel like it next time, but more like, I have thought about it and that's why I'm delaying it, procrastinating it, right? Second, it can be a great market timing strategy, because you're not just launching the product blindly, you're making sure that the market, the demand and the supply is also ready for your product and your ideas. And last, resource optimization. We are all, I don't know about you if you have too many resources, but at least from my experience, there's a lot of scarcity of, good people that you want. And that leads to critical need of resource optimization. So you're mapping the right people to the right problems. Maybe I have another question before we end this presentation, which is, what's your biggest fear when you're choosing to delay a decision? And how do you balance that with the potential rewards of waiting? You can go back to the Slido and maybe write some of the answers. And meanwhile, they're doing it. Angelina, can we read some of the answers from the previous prompt?
Also, I think we have got like a very quiet audience. Perhaps they would reply after this. We are a bit stuck on responses, but we do have questions rolling in. I think
Okay.
everybody just wants questions.
Cool. All right. Everybody wants answers, but I don't get any somehow. So we can move forward. People can share their decisions or their fears later. But what I wanted to go into after that is addressing those fears and how you can address those fears and build more confidence is using a bunch of tools. So right now, of course, you can always ask, you can Google these things, or you can ask the AI to help you do all of your analytics these days. But in case you actually want to improve your confidence on why you are delaying or procrastinating a decision, you can choose an iterative planning framework, which means have short-term milestones, break down your product development into even more smaller, manageable stages. It doesn't have to be the common roadmap. It can be more of your own team or yourself roadmap, right? And kind of have clear blocks or roadblocks when you're going to reassess the situation. For the market readiness assessment, as we touched on before, you want to make sure that you have your customer ready, which means, is there any sign of trends? Are there searches? Is there some sort of social media that you can actually measure? Second, is there technological maturity? Does your market have the infrastructure or let's say the software ecosystem or compatibility that you need, as well as competitiveness. So make sure your competitors are also, I think a good indicator is seeing if your competitor is growing, that means the industry is doing well. And then the overall economic environment of the market that you're going to launch is also doing well. Because imagine if your product is a bit more of a good to have leisure product, it could be more sensitive to economic downturns versus something of a crucial, essential daily life product like payments, or you just using a debit card. You might still be sensitive to economic downturns, but maybe not as much, right? And then risks and mitigation strategies, because if you're procrastinating, it gives you more time to think about the problems or the risks that might happen if you do go ahead with the decision. Decision loop framework is if you do small pilots, and then you can actually test and have a decision loop framework. Real options analysis is a very corporate finance term. I don't know if any of you is familiar with, and if we have the time to get into it, but you can definitely Google more about it. And then Monte Carlo simulation is something when you're just looking at different scenarios, having a vision and then working backwards and seeing how you can run a simulation and what would generate the best outcome. If you act now, if you act later, competitor response aggressive, basic, you can assess a lot of those things there. All right, cool. So I think for everybody who's attending, probably Angelina is, also sharing some opportunities later, but I just wanted to take some time and sneak in a couple of open positions I am also hiring for in my team. So I'm hiring for 2 open positions in the team. One is a senior product analyst, and anybody who has, let's say, decent product analyst experience is welcome. And then second is a bit more of a strategy role, which is product strategy associate. Feel free to scan these QR codes. If you have any questions regarding these roles, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I don't know if there's any other contact method, email. Yeah. And actually, I can wait here for a second instead of rushing if people want to take out their phones and scan. I'm sure this is also shared later, or
Yeah. So the audience will have this on YouTube to even look at later. They would have the material.
oh, sounds good. And if you remember the anxious walking around penguin, which was like delaying and procrastinating in the beginning of this presentation, I think after you have done a lot of thinking and made a deliberate decision to procrastinate something, you can actually be a chilled out penguin who is like happy with the decision that they have made, and they have like their leadership and their team bought in on the idea as well because it's actually thought through. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you, Asta. Okay, let me project my screen. Cool. Alrighty. Thank you, Asta, so much for taking us through that completely interesting topic. So from now on, I'm just gonna call it strategic delay because that's the way I'm gonna handle decisions from now on. So audience, we have a very special segment coming up. That's the questions and answers, and this is definitely what you have been waiting for. So thank you so much for listening and for basically pushing questions. We already have a couple come through. But for those of you who haven't, please do get on Slido. You can either scan the QR that you have here, or you can go on slido.com and directly add in the code 1678890. So make sure that you post your question, and I will post it to Aastha over here, who is super, super excited to answer the questions that you have. So that being said, I'm going to buy you some time right now. And that is by going into a bit about what Product People does and who we are. So the use cases in which to engage is the first is on interim fractional product management roles, where we cover leaves of 3 to 12 months, or even when you are hiring and it's a slow hire period. So during those, we are happy to step right in and cover those positions for you. We are also product coaches and consultants, and we have that capacity and capability to coach and create alongside you. The third use case is product discovery, where we can either do MVPs or discover the next initiatives or products that will really help you push your product to market and move things forward for your company. So these are a few B2C clients. This is not like a holistic view of all the B2C clients that we have worked with, but a couple. And perhaps you already know these logos like Zalando, Philetix, Backmarket, and our B2B clients. A very high level view, Utopia, Cognigy, Ometria are some of the clients that we have worked with. And in terms of stats, so we have 300 cross-functional teams supported with 42 product leaders and product managers. And we also have 62% of women in the team, and 66% of our leadership are also women. So that being said, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, so we have a whole bunch of questions rolling in. And before that, also, I think we have a couple of answers also for the question that you asked about, the possible fears when delaying decisions. So there are the general overall view about it is being seen as indecisive or lacking confidence by stakeholders or leadership, letting competitors gain an advantage by moving faster, and worrying that too much time spent on analysis might result in paralysis by analysis and no decision at all. So those were like the themes of answers that we got. That being said, I'll quickly go into the questions that we have. And the first is, how do you differentiate between procrastination that adds value versus procrastination that might harm the project?
I think the idea is to kind of have a vision of how you want your ideal, let's say, outcome to be, right? So for example, and I didn't say output, I said outcome because I am not talking yet about like the product itself that you're creating, but the objective with which you're doing it, right? Like I want X percentage more acquisition rate, or I want users to be spending more. Now you work backward and you look at the actual activity that you're doing, and if it's actually aligning to the outcome that you are trying to achieve, right? Sometimes you can rate it. If it's not like a black and white, you can do like a 1 to 5 and think like, okay, I have these few objectives or outcomes that I want out of launching this feature or launching this product. Does this activity actually, if does doing this activity actually help me achieve any of those, or actually destroys value?
Cool. Thank you. And also, I've noticed that some audience members think that the poll is stuck, but it's not. You can use the same QR for the comments as well, and all you got to do is tap QA. Cool. That being said, the second question that we have is, in your experience, how often does the solution opportunity tree reveal that delaying a decision is the best course of action?
If I'm being honest, for definitely the big items which were falling on the right top quadrant, if you remember that matrix, which is doing this initiative or actually stepping into the opportunity could have high impact. But at the same time, if I am like not actually, sorry, can you repeat the question? I feel like I lost my train of thought.
Sure. In your experience, how often does the solution opportunity tree reveal that delaying a decision is the best course of action?
Okay, sorry. Yes, so we came back to decision tree. Actually, very often, and especially in the situations where we feel we do not understand the landscape really well. And what I mean by landscape is often not like what you can do and maybe what high level the market looks like, but actually what is the fundamental, are the regulations in place, and very often like, do we have the right arm to execute these things? So overall, honestly, in my experience, using a decision tree has given a very, I think, accurate, or not accurate, but accurate direction to where we should be proceeding and what can wait and what needs to be actioned upon now. So I'll give you an example. For example, if you have a deal that a company is coming in to buy you, or you want to buy a company for a capability, and you have a bunch of bidders, right? And what you want to then think, do I need to bid now to get the capability of this feature, or do I do it later? And in this situation, maybe if you have like a huge bidding going, you might want to not delay your action because you will lose the deal and the success rate would become 0. But most of the times, yes, decision trees actually help quite a lot.
Cool, perfect, thank you. The third question is, what advice would you give to product managers who struggle with the pressure to make quick decisions?
Quick math and decision trees. Very fast napkin calculations and decision trees, because maybe the pressure that you're feeling is coming more from like, what is my manager going to think about me, right? Because more or less you have an intrinsic gut feeling that I shouldn't be doing it, or it will take time. So instead of getting into analysis paralysis, why not just break it down into very simple decision tree? What it also helps you is focus on the right decision. So you're not making decisions just for the sake of doing something, but actually doing something that aligns with your organization strategy as well. Let's say you have to do it in 2 days. I'm sure if you just like stand in front of a whiteboard, you can actually like write down the thought process of what happens and when not. And if you bring your manager or a product leader or a CEO and show him this tree, he might suggest an alternative answer or add more decisions and nodes and enrich, but he will definitely, or she will definitely appreciate you for comprehensively thinking about an opportunity, which very few people do. So if you're doing a decision tree and some very quick math, I think you're already doing more than what 90% of the people do.
That makes sense, Asta. Cool. So the fourth question is, can strategic procrastination be applied to other areas of business outside of product management?
Same way, if you have a decision which is not just about product management, but operations or hiring, let's say, do you need this role? Is getting this person right now add more value, or do you actually want to wait a bit more and then hire someone for a particular position, right? Maybe you can get a better talent after a while because you have spent more time looking, or your brand already has some sort of brand affinity to help you gain, let's say, talent really fast. Or if you do want to like hire them now, maybe it does help you like bring the tech debt is lower. So it can be so many options, but then you would have the domain expertise to actually make that decision and take your manager or leader like alongside with you on how you thought about it.
Perfect. The next question is, what advice would you give to teams unfamiliar with solution opportunity trees on how to start using them effectively in their decision-making processes?
Sorry, I'm not clear about the solution opportunity.
The question is, what advice would you give to teams unfamiliar with solution opportunity trees on how to start using them effectively in their decision-making processes?
I think the best time is when you're doing your road mapping, especially if you have resource constraint, which happens at least with us all the time. We never have enough engineers, developers, product managers for any of the things. So I think what it comes down to is I'm building a roadmap for the next quarter. I need X amount of engineers. My CEO or CTO is not going to give me as many engineers. So how about I have like this sort of decision tree, which is, okay, if I am not doing this, or if I don't get resources to do this, then I won't be able to achieve X, or I would have to focus on something else. So I think maybe 8 weeks before the road mapping, sorry for saying a particular number because that's what I do.
Cool, perfect. The sixth question is, how do you ensure that all relevant stakeholders are aligned with the insights and decisions derived from a solution opportunity tree?
Very interesting question. Well, I think what I do is by narrowing the number of people, I take the responsibility of informing, because there's two sorts of people. One, I think, who's its own responsibility to inform themselves about what's going on in the project, in the domain and things. So I am not like burdened with everything myself. But of course, I would narrow down the circle of people who need to be aware, because let's say they are the key decision makers. So it could be the president, the CEO, the head of the product, and let's say another head of operations. Because after that, my understanding is that those people should be, if they're aligned, then they should be sharing that information. Of course, it's always readily available for others to talk about, but I would definitely reduce the, let's say, ownership to get more, like more quality versus quantity. You
Cool.
don't
Thank you.
have to be responsible for aligning every single person, but the main people, yes.
Cool. Thank you. And also just sneak in a question from me. So when you procrastinate and kind of strategically delay these decisions, is there a possibility like your C-level suit getting, like worried that certain decisions are not made in time? And how exactly can you handle that pressure that comes from that strategy?
Yeah. I think it depends on overall two things. One, how data driven is your leadership? Because if your leadership is like more gut and feelings driven, I think it's going to be hard to tell that somebody's pet project needs to be procrastinated, because yes, they are a bit more, let's say, emotionally attached or have some sort of inclining to get into an initiative. But if they are data driven and if they're thinking very pragmatically about what we should be doing and going as a company towards achieving that vision, I think just having the, I don't know how product planning works like in every other company, but definitely having a section of things you are not doing and justifying, like, because let's say my CEO really has a pet project X, he really wants to do it. I have been procrastinating it because based on all the analysis and my understanding of the landscape and the overall context, I think this doesn't fit in right now. But not to keep the main stakeholders in the blind, I will make sure that I will have a section in my, like I call RFC, or we call RFC, which is quarterly plans, and you would add a section saying not doing. And then these are the projects which people do want to know what's going on with, because it's big things. And I would just write like a one sentence of why not doing. It could be a dependency on another team. It could be market outlook doesn't look good. It could be interest rates are higher. My business work is very affected by it, or something. But overall, instead of keeping somebody guessing, I would just like, yeah, add it as well, like why am I procrastinating or what is delayed.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Asa, for that clarification. And that being said, we have reached the end of the questions that we have for you. Um, and for the audience, so we do have good news. We are hiring. You can scan this QR code to get to know more about the available positions here at Product People. And on the right, you can also subscribe to our newsletter where we share some of the best product topics that are ongoing and share insight in terms of knowledge for those different topics. So that being said, we have a very interesting topic coming up next as well on the 10th of September. And that is full valuable product and culture lessons from the UK government digital teams. And that will be done. And our speaker will be Jock, who is a product management and leadership coach, fractional product leader, and author. It's a super interesting talk for you that we have lined up for next. So that being said, thank you so much, Aastha, for this lovely presentation on strategic procrastination and giving the audience a bit of what exactly it is, and also going through all those lovely examples to kind of put all of that into practice and walk through in terms of what and how exactly we can kind of bring that in to our day-to-day
Yeah, feel free
lives.
to reach out to me for any of the roles that I was showing in for openings, or as well having any, let's say, for more conversations on this particular topic. If you have some questions or places maybe where the AI hasn't taken over yet, and I can still help.
Cool, thanks, Asta. All righty then. Thank you, audience, for being with us today. And please do line up for next week as well, where we have that interesting topic for you. Thank you so much and have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.